The way that we're looking to do that is through having a members space or a community that people can belong to, where there's a shared vision that health and well-being is foundational and is a priority from which everything else we experience in life comes. My best work, my best relationships, my best friendships depend on being in a good state of health. And for me, health is really about connection. Connected to my present moment awareness, in which I can experience the world. All there is awareness. I can experience my relationships, I can experience nature, and be in connection and cohesion with all of those things. But on a practical level, we have an organic farm, we have a natural swimming pool, we have obviously a fantastic gym, a longevity clinic, recovery space, a number of member spaces, a 47-acre forest, woodland with various work pods, etc. in there and rooms, biohacked bedrooms, creating optimal sleep environments, and a world first DNA optimized restaurant. So essentially putting members through a DNA methylation test and then using the methylation results as the basis to inform a personalized menu that member experiences, because I don't believe there's any such thing as healthy food. What might be healthy for me is not necessarily going to be healthy for you. And so it's really taking a personalized approach to well-being, but experienced in a community environment.
Yeah, thank you. So I have, beautiful. I have like so many questions. First,
I still have questions about it. I'm still figuring it out.
So, you know, I wear the clinical hat. So
Sure.
I'm a doctor. I see people who want to improve their lives, not necessarily sick. They just really want to do behavioral change. And there's often a prescription of the things that they need to do. How does spaces like this, whether in hospitality basis to start with at least, kind of close the gap of suffering of people trying to do a behavioral change but not being able to sustain it? How do they help? That's my first question, and then we bring this in.
I think environment is incredibly important. To be in an environment that supports the outcome that you want. So for example, we're entirely alcohol free. So if you're in a space where alcohol isn't on offer, it's much easier to say no to the drink than you're in a traditional hospitality space where alcohol is abundant. But to answer your first point, I feel one of the challenges that we have and the gaps that need to be bridged is that for many of us, many of you in the audience I imagine have a wearable, for example. Many of you will do periodic testing, but how is that data utilized if the space is not cohesive with that data? So for example, if we have daily wearable data that gives us biofeedback, we have periodic blood testing, gut testing, etc., how can we leverage that data to inform your journey through the site so that your experience is matched to the outcome that you need? Now that's on a physical level, but then how do we also then marry that up with an experiential level? So that's through not only offering medical diagnostics and daily wearables, but also like how are you feeling? What's going on in your life? Like what do you need? And that's achieved through having that personal approach, but again, experience collectively around people that reinforce the behaviors that are important. And it's much easier to follow that when other people are doing the same, right?
Yes. So that actually was my next question. In a way, so there's the medical data-driven kind of evidence-based conceptualization of building a longevity and wellness space. But we know there's a lot of, global medical clinics that started longevity programs in beautiful countrysides all around Europe and the world. How is this different? Where perhaps it's the fun aspect, it's the social aspect, perhaps it's the lightness of being. I don't know, I want to hear your take on that. And how can this be accessible or scaled later on? So two questions.
Yeah, I think typically you have two ends of the spectrum, right? You have traditional hospitality, which is great for community, for socializing, scratching that social itch. On the other end of the spectrum, you have this individual medicalized approach, whether that's a retreat, whether that's a medical experience, but it's very individual. So my personal experience was drinking, partying, being around people and having the social health to not drinking, going down the medical longevity route, and then losing my social health in the process. So this middle ground is, how can we create an environment that's supportive of health, that enables me to still socialize. And I think very often, again, I'm not like totally against alcohol, I'm not saying nobody should drink, but when alcohol is present, I don't feel that it's conducive. We can't call ourselves a health space, okay? What we have to recognize, however, the role of alcohol is it's a catalyst for connection. It helps us to connect with other people because we feel more confident, it removes the mark, exactly. But the opportunity that's presented, and I feel that a lot of the big hotel brands, the big hospitality brands, are not willing to take this risk by removing alcohol because we repeat the narrative, it doesn't work without alcohol, we can't make money without alcohol. When we remove alcohol, we have the opportunity to create a more organic means of bringing people together. We have to think about how is the space hosted? What makes me feel safe to be myself, but I don't need alcohol? What's the design of the space? What's the beverage programming when I'm looking at adaptogens, elixirs, these uplifting drinks that inform that experience? Where I do feel capable of dancing, singing, meeting people without the need for alcohol to be present. So I think really it's this middle ground, it's social, experiential space where you don't necessarily recognize that the air is filtered, the water's through a reverse osmosis system, the lights are supportive of your sleep cycle, all that stuff just happens organically. You feel it, but you're not necessarily aware that it's happening. That makes sense?
Yes, complete sense actually. So the experience matters.
Yes.
It's not just the space.
Of course.
This means a full cultural change on the people who actually build and work in this space.
But we're ready for it, we're crying out for it.
Yes.
You know, our experience through social media, we're like 40 million plus views on our content. Only 40,000 people signed up with their email. Hundreds of thousands of followers. We're talking consistently about alcohol-free, wellness first. People are crying out for these spaces, and that's amazing to see. I want this space to exist. That's why we're building it.
I think the question here, because there's a myth that longevity and wellness is expensive. It's for the niche. It's for the few. I mean, it is. There's that, thinking. At this point, some parts of it might be true, but how can we make this accessible to all? Of course, I'm not saying about your particular project,
yes.
But how do you see, since you founded this, in terms of particular design, thinking, community thinking, maybe city design, how can you project that on a scale of health to all?
It's a really important question. You and I have spoken about this a lot. The best biohacks, the best tech, the best equipment mimics nature. The best wellness practice I do is sitting in silence. Hands down. Sleep, movement. It's really quite simple in that respect. But what you're talking about is a cultural shift, and in a culture where I'll go deep for a second if you don't mind.
Yes, please. That's why we're here.
We, at a very simple level, we are simply awareness. The only consistent, our body changes, our experience, we are simply awareness. We are continuously pulled out of our awareness of presence, our awareness of being, through needing this, needing that, wanting this, sadness, happiness, whatever, but behind all of that is awareness. So simplifying life beyond needing into a state of being in spaces that are supportive of that are where we win. Now, how I create the vessel that can experience that is through these simple means of stillness, sleep, movement, community, which we can cultivate ourselves. On a practical level, because I realize that's a little bit aloof, the reason that we've built the project in public is so that the learnings that we have through building a site we can share. And if you never come to our property, hopefully you've been able to see why we're cognizant of mold in the property, why we're thinking about water, why we're thinking about light. These are adaptations you can make to your home for very little money. These exercises that we're facilitating, you can do for very little money. Community, bringing people together, people you love, very little money. So there's an accessibility point there, and proactively, the mindset of someone else should do something about it is ultimately what's preventing you from being able to step into it anyway, right? So we started the project with no money. We've just raised just over £5 million. If I can do it, I just have access to a smartphone. I truly believe anyone can do it. We didn't know what we were doing before we started. So So I think it's downstream of intention, action, making it happen.
Thank you so much. What I heard from what the deep dive that you shared, and thank you for that, I heard it's really about one setting their intention first, direct their container of awareness and their actions thereafter, without the myth of this is being inaccessible. You know, life is abundant for all, that's by principle, as you
For
shared.
sure.
So, and minimizing noise, the word you used, like silence, it's about minimizing noise. So how can, you know, we minimize from social media, from negative inputs, and then be able to process what's coming into a well-long life, and using these beautiful spaces when we can, instead of the norm social bonding with food or alcohol or...
Again, it's coming back to
Yes.
what we are
Yeah.
in principle, which is awareness. Our state is love, it's awareness, right? How do you come back into that state? You simply drop into awareness of where we are. The fabric between my feet and the floor, the air on my neck, the fabric on my arm, the way my eyes feel, my heartbeat, tuning into what is. That's the space from which everything else comes.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Louis. Thank you for this beautiful share.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?